Hey friends, welcome back to the Prevention Leaders Podcast. If you're here, you're part of a community that gets it. The late nights, the grant deadlines, the wins that don't always make headlines, and the love you have for your people. See, around here, we don't do it alone. We learn from each other. We share what works, and we celebrate the kind of progress that sticks. Now, if you've been craving real connection with fellow prevention professionals, come hang out with us in the Prevention Leaders Network by visiting preventionleaders.com. It's a place to find your people, swap ideas that actually translate to action on Monday morning, and get re-energized when the work feels heavy. And if you're ready for a deeper shift, Cohort 3 of the Prevention Leaders Masterclass kicks off January 2026. Now, this isn't just another course. It's a guided, small group experience built for personal transformation. Over a few focused weeks, you'll clarify what matters most, design a sustainable way of working, and build the confidence to lead with purpose. Expect honest reflection, practical frameworks, and a supportive cohort that keeps you moving forward. So you leave with habits you can trust and a plan you'll actually use. If that sounds like the reset you've been waiting for, now's the time to act. There are only 6 spots remaining in Cohort 3, and we're offering a special end-of-the-year discount to help you invest in yourself before the new year begins. So grab your spot at preventionleaders.com. Let's make 2026 the year you're not just doing prevention, you're leading it together. All right, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to Prevention Leaders Podcast with Dave Clausen, your source for insights into the world of substance misuse prevention. Each episode, Dave brings you the latest strategies, expert discussions, and real-life success stories designed to empower your work and inspire impactful change. Whether you're a prevention professional, community advocate, or simply passionate about making a difference, this podcast will keep you informed and motivated. Get ready to lead with a confidence that drives lasting results. Let's lead the change together.
Oh, all right, folks. I'm excited to bring a friend. We'll say neighbor, because you live just to the north in Michigan from me here in Indiana, and been looking forward to this conversation. I feel like it's been a minute since I've actually got to see you and connect with you, and a lot of things have happened. And so let's jump right into it. And Louise, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. So I'm Louise, as you mentioned, from Michigan. I started out my prevention career over at Prevention Network, and we connected when I was the Michigan Higher Education Network coordinator, or the MIHEN coordinator, working on college campuses across Michigan and collaborating that way. And I since stepped into the executive director position at Prevention Network, really took on some leadership roles and learned a lot, really enjoyed that. And most recently stepped into my own consulting gig and started Montag Forward Solutions, LLC, which really allows me to support prevention specialists throughout their career journey in the field of prevention, whether that's just getting started, figuring out and navigating that initial year, or obtaining their certification, their certified prevention specialist certification, all the way to building some of those leadership skills and becoming a stronger supervisor in the field. So I'm really enjoying that, and I can't wait to have a further conversation with you.
When were you with the higher ed network? How long ago was that? I can't remember.
I think I started at Prevention Network in 2017.
2017. Okay. Yeah, that would have been probably 2017, 16 would have been my guess. Yeah. So it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. And I walked in knowing nothing about prevention. I had a background in public health and knew public health theory and framework, but not prevention. So it was kind of a whirlwind. I think that's where everybody kind of starts, right? Or most of us kind of stumble into the field of prevention and fell in love with it and really thought I was, appreciated the work we were doing, that community engagement. I'm big into the strategic planning and visioning. And so really enjoyed some of that work, and enough so that when they offered the position of executive director, I jumped at it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So within all that experience, I know there's a lot of wisdom. And I don't know if you're like me, but I like to consider, like, I think like I have an informal advisory committee or advisory board, different folks that I look up to and respect, and I would turn to for advice on different topics, even though I'm a solopreneur kind of thing. And when I think about you and your seat on that board, well, surprise, surprise, you're on that board. Haha, didn't tell you. But what I've watched, and it's been awesome watching you move from the higher ed statewide network to the entire prevention network, and your approach to leadership being very driven and purposeful, and not so much as reactionary. And so I'm curious, can we kind of like unpack that? Like how do you think about that? How do you go about doing it? What can we teach our listeners about, leading with that intention for prevention work?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. So what's interesting is I was kind of thinking back a little bit when I started, especially when I stepped into that leadership role at Prevention Network. I had some experience in supervising others, but didn't have a ton of leadership or C-suite level management experience. And I walked into Prevention Network at a time where the state had lost some grant funding, and that was trickling down. Federal funding had shifted, probably sounds similar to where we're at now in some aspects. So there was a shift in funding, there was a shift in staffing and management, and I felt like the world was on fire and I was playing whack-a-mole, just trying to put out or, put a Band-Aid at least on the next hole to stop us from sinking. And while that worked, and I, again, learned a lot and figured it out, I think that's so common when it comes to leadership and stepping into the role. We're not always given all of the tools or information. And many times we end up being a lot more reactionary. But when we slow down and figure out what direction we're going, and I know time is such a luxury, but if we take that time now to figure out and focus, make sure that everybody is on the same page, we are going to be able to weather that storm so much better, so much more effectively than ever before. And so I think there was a big shift in my leadership. And backing up a little bit, when I started as the executive director, when I moved into that new position, one of my pieces of negotiation in that conversation with the board of directors was needing a mentor. It was one of the best decisions I had made. I am still in connection with this person, and she's become a business mentor and a friend and a colleague in the field. This was a former board member who wanted to continue supporting me in my career journey. And she had told me, Louise, you need to slow down. And if you know me, I really don't have a slow down button. I am at one speed only, and it is full steam ahead. We are going to manage all of the things and do all of the fun ideas, and we're going to figure it out. And she said, that is going to be your fast track to burnout. And she wasn't wrong, but some of the things that she drilled into me and I've so appreciated was taking time to really slow down in the conversation or in the prevention work. And by that, I mean, every once in a while I'd overschedule myself, but for the most part, I really tried to block off Monday mornings and have at least a 3-hour block of focus time to help me prepare for the week. I also liked to do it towards the end of the week on Thursday or Friday, And that was my time to really slow down and prepare and figure things out. Because if I was in meetings all day long, I ended up reacting to whatever situation was, that arose that day, rather than figuring out and navigating, having some time to think through and plan and organize myself so that when something popped up or bubbled up, I knew how to respond quickly.
I like that routine and that I still do that. And my Monday mornings are protected and my Friday afternoons are protected. And I can encroach on those times if I want to, but I have those boundaries set up. And yeah, I would agree. It's a great habit and a great routine. And actually one of the sayings that I brought with me from the Army is that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So often we are playing whack-a-mole, go, 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 that we don't pause to orient ourselves or to reorganize or refit or reposition or adjust our strategy or our heading or even, dare I say, catch our breath. Oh, how dare we catch our breath? But yeah, I feel you there. Absolutely. And I wanna grab onto something you mentioned though for that leading with intention, whether it came from your mentor or just from learning on your own. But was that idea, like in my words, that North Star, that main direction that, hey, we as an organization, a coalition, whatever it may be, are going this direction. Tell me more about that, because then I want to get into a little bit of how can we as leaders figure out what that is?
So I love that. And leading with intention, it's really figuring out, again, like you just said, what is yet that North Star and where is that direction? If I'm not on the same page as others in my coalition or my network or others that I'm collaborating on, we're going to go in two separate directions. Or it's going to look like maybe we're on the same page, but then something happens or something comes up and we're going to start to split unintentionally, but we'll be thinking that I find sometimes we think we're on the same page as somebody else until we make different decisions when something bubbles up or comes up. So having that same direction and focus, and I think it starts by setting aside that boundary and having that focused time. And then it has to do with, let's slow down and have some strategic conversations about where are we going to be going in the next year. And maybe that's building out the scary logic model that everyone is so nervous to put together. Maybe it's just figuring out, sitting down, is our mission and vision statement still in line? Or because then once you understand this is our mission, this is our vision, these are our values, it makes it a whole lot easier to make decisions when a new grant comes up and you have a deadline in 3 weeks that you have to write this entire grant and you don't have time to convene 5 different strategy meetings. You already know those because you've had those discussions with your board or the other coalition members or whatever group you are navigating at the time. And so I think that strategy planning is so important. And whether it is strategic planning, those 3 to 5 year plans, or just that 1 year strategic visioning, I think it's really important to have something that is ever evolving and ever changing. Dwight Eisenhower said, plans are useless, but planning is everything. And when I think about strategic planning, I think that's so true. Often people put this together like, oh, I've got to put together another strategic plan that we are going to, rubber stamp approve and then sit on a shelf and we have to revisit it in another 3 to 5 years, however long we set it. I don't know how valuable that is. It is so much more valuable to sit down and figure out and continually make those plans and adapt and adjust. We can try to anticipate some of these things and put in scenario planning and alternate, some of the risk management analyses. But at the end of the day, we might not be able to recognize everything. And so it's, how do we pivot? How do we adjust? How do we continuously plan and make those adjustments? Kind of like we're always making process improvements with our evaluation. I think it's so in line with the SPIF and the work that we already know in prevention.
Yes. And when I train, I like to have folks operate in 90-day implementation cycles, because life happens and you've got to have those pauses built into your operating system to be able to see if you need to pivot, remaneuver, or adjust. Yeah. Well, let's say, you've worked with the group, they've crafted their mission, they've got their mission, vision, values, they've got their strategic plan with their 1, 3, 5, and hey, they even went so bold and came up with a 10-year. They got it. It's like 25, 35 pages, and they just put it in a file folder somewhere in their computer. How do you keep at least the core 3, the mission, vision, values, top of mind so they don't get forgotten about?
Those are great questions. And so some of the things that we did at Prevention Network and that I've since encouraged other organizations to do is we always had our mission statement at the top of our meeting agendas. And so that was one of the things that we were reminded of at every meeting, every conversation that we had collectively. And we read those at the beginning of the meeting. So we knew what our mission and our vision statement was, regardless of whether we were updating it or not. And then from there, it kind of centered and grounded us in our work. And then the other thing that I did was just had them up in the office. So you can see books around me. What you don't see is a whiteboard and a cork board right next to me. And that's so that I can easily write down notes, but I can also remember. And I have stuck things on the wall that I want to kind of keep always at the forefront of my mind. And so maybe it's including a sticky note that has your mission and vision statement and your values right there, within easy access that you are always looking at or can always refer back to, so that you can always think about that with any key decision and I think it just makes your decisions a whole lot easier.
Absolutely. And on the individual level, so I've got my personal why statement, and I use that as my North Star. And that is, if I make this decision, is this in alignment with or living out my why, or does it take me away from that? And I would say same operationally with your organization. It can be that sort of that lens, that checks and balances.
Absolutely. I'm finding because my business is so new, it's changing and evolving, but it is at the forefront of my mind in the direction in figuring out what is that North Star? How am I going to spend my time, my energy, my focus? It also allows me then to be able to respond to people in different ways or quickly and easily, because I already know that information. I think it's okay to pivot and adjust as long as everybody's in agreement about that.
I agree. Originally, my business was really just about helping individuals and organizations reach their next level of excellence. But it has since grown and evolved into I'm a tactical capacity builder. And the tools in my toolbox range from speaking, facilitation, to podcasting, media, and e-learning. Tactical capacity still very much helps folks reach their next level of excellence, but it's that deeper, more focused, what exactly do I do and how do I do it? So yeah, it's okay to evolve. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going down this journey together. We've crafted our vision, our mission, our values. And then this funding pops up over here. And oh my gosh, there's $1.5 million that we could get. But how do we, what is that conversation, that process for, does this fit? Is this in alignment? Yes. Okay. No. What do we do?
I think that's such a tough question. And I think that's something that so many people grapple with. A common pitfall that I see among different groups where it's, oh, let's go after that funding rather than let's understand who we are, what we do, why we do what we do, what are the needs of our community, and then we can find the right funder to support that work. That shifts our perspective from that reactionary, oh, a grant announcement just came up, to it kind of figuring out who we are and finding that right grant to fund the proposal that we are needing in the community. I've seen communities and I've been a part of conversations where it's one of those, we needed the funding and a group came in or a funder came in and said, hey, why don't you implement XYZ evidence-based best practice curriculum into this community? We did that with college students. I was partnering with a college campus and a funder came in and said, we have funding to partner with this campus and the campus professional to run a certain program, curriculum on their campus. Both of us were trained to facilitate or were there shortly thereafter, trained to facilitate this program. It's a great evidence-based program. It was working well in Michigan at the time. We thought, let's just adapt it for this college campus. We got in there thinking, oh, everything's going to be great. And it was not the best program for that campus at that time. Thankfully, the person on the campus who I was working with and I had the knowledge and awareness to stop, put a pause on things and figure out and pivot. So we were lucky in that scenario, but I think a lot of that was just the reactionary. The funder comes in and tells us what to do and we go and implement rather than slowing down, figuring out what are the needs of my community, what's actually going to make sense, because college campuses are very different. There are some similarities, but there are also a lot of differences from the general population in a community. And what works in one place doesn't work everywhere. And this is, some of your more foundational prevention information, probably not new. Yet when you are in the midst of it, it can be so easy just to go along with it, knowing that you can't just move programs into a new community. But when a funder dangles a large pot of funds over your head, we seem to have short-term memory loss and forget all of our prevention science and understanding, especially if we don't have those conversations beforehand and the deep-rooted foundation of who are we, where are we at, what are we doing, that organizational assessment in figuring out what is the capacity of our organization and the resources that we have. Who are the people at the table that we can connect with? What do we already have going for us? What does our data look like? Having all that information can help really direct and guide that conversation. And I think the funding will follow. We just have to trust in that, but understand who we are. Because the better we can articulate who we are, the better a funder is able to understand and support that work.
And one of the, I'll call it the unintended ripple effect consequences of just chasing different grants that I've seen, more so at the community level than at an organizational level, would be the impacts on relationships and stakeholder buy-in and commitment. When a community stakeholder doesn't know who you are and what you stand for, and they see, oh, we're doing this, oh, now we're doing this, now we're doing this, that's going to slowly impact their buy-in, their willingness to fully engage and support. And that's going to affect your outcomes, your sustainability, the relationships in the community. I feel like sometimes we don't pause long enough to give that an acknowledgement as well.
Absolutely. Well, and it's one of those, you start to chip away little by little that trust that you've built and that understanding. But you've also, once then the funder also can't explain to others or that board member or that coalition member, because they are now explaining all the things that you do, and we're going in 10 different directions. And the conversation is around what is being done rather than why is, and explaining the whole purpose behind and the impact of that direction. And now you have unclear goals and community members don't even know what's going on. You're not going to have their buy-in either. And it's going to then ripple into other avenues.
How, as a leader, do you communicate that to your team? The say, we're saying no to this so we can say yes to this, or so we can be this. How do you do that as a leader?
So those are the tough conversations. I remember one year when I was strategic planning with a group or conducting a strategic planning session. We did one of those initial activities, very common if you've done strategic planning before, where you write down all of your ideas on a sticky note, each idea on a different sticky note, and we're going to stick those up on the board and move them around. And we had one of the members in this group had said something along the lines of, we really want to hand out kits to those experiencing homelessness in the community, whether I think it was a toiletry kit or something along those lines, maybe blankets. Really admirable, great work and important, helpful to the community. But that organization wasn't set up for doing direct service work. And the mission was really specific to substance misuse prevention, not the general, those experiencing homelessness. There were other organizations we partnered with in the community or could partner with to do some of that work. And so it was the interesting, how do we have a conversation with this member to make sure that their voice is heard and valued, and they have some really great ideas, and this might not make sense for our organization right now, but how can this work still make sure, how can we make sure that this work is still happening? Because it's important, valuable work. I appreciate you bringing this to the table. We really want all of those ideas, because in the brainstorming session, the more ideas we have, the better. And then how do we distill those down to figure out and revisit that mission and vision statement to figure out, does this fit, or are we starting to mission drift a little bit? And do we need to reel it back in? Is there another organization who is better suited to do this work? Is there another coalition or group that's better suited? And how can we work alongside and partner so that we are strategic in what we can do and don't overextend ourselves?
Yes. And when it comes to maybe not that specific example, but one of the things that I've noticed with long-running, high-capacity coalitions and even prevention organizations is almost their ability to, I'll say, connect the dots to different funding streams, or lack of a better phrase, make it fit or make it work. But I know it's not like bending it to their will. It's more about articulating and connecting those dots. But what lessons have you learned there that you could share with us?
So this gets into the fun grant writing. And I think when you're thinking about grant funding or grant writing, and I'm sure a lot of us are doing that right now, given the current climate and context of things, how do we further diversify funding? I think that's always a question on the table, and making sure that we are able to pivot or adapt, adjust if we lose funding in certain areas. How can we ensure that the work is sustainable? I was in a training once and somebody described it as kind of a 3-lane road, all happening simultaneously. And I liked this visual. And so the first lane of the road, or one of the lanes of the road, is really figuring out that brand audit And by that, I mean, who are you? What are you doing? The why? All of the stuff that we've been talking about so far in our conversation today. That's one step. And then you're also doing that research in figuring out, okay, so now once we know the why, once we know what capacity we have, the resources, then we can figure out and do some of the research. Who's already funding this work? What resources do we already have? What are kind of our neighbor groups, coalitions, counties? Where are they getting their funding from to kind of figure out who is partnering and doing some of this work? Where are people in the space? And then once we get some of that research, we can start to craft a message and a grant proposal. And so that is our most strategic way of doing it, is figuring out and then revisiting all three lanes, because they kind of work and interplay together and weave into a much stronger grant proposal than something where it comes in. Many of these groups and grant funders have annual deadlines, so you can kind of look and see, when did that grant drop last year? When was the deadline? And kind of anticipate that we're going to have very similar dates in future years. And so maybe it's not even taking it this grant cycle, but waiting and thinking about, is there something that we should propose next grant cycle? And thinking about this a year or two in advance.
Yes, really leading and thinking future-focused, intentional, and purposeful. Yeah, and it's okay. What I also heard in that is it's okay to go slow, to go far. I want to bring us back to earlier in our conversation, whack-a-mole. And where my mind goes with that too, thinking of like leadership, it's that burnout leader showing up to work on a Monday morning thinking, okay, what fires am I going to have to put out today? And this life of just constant urgency and having to respond, to fix. And how do we as prevention leaders navigate that I'll say both forced urgency, perceived urgency, and move to that more proactive operating status?
So I think I'm thinking back about our time. So when I stepped into the executive director role, I didn't share with you, we talked about timing in 2017, starting as the MyHIN coordinator, but I stepped into the role of executive director May of 2020. Just as, you see that face. As soon as I say that time, we were about less than a month into the COVID-19 shutdown, and it was an interesting time. I mean, things were tough. We didn't know what the future was going to hold. I still don't have that crystal ball, so I don't know what the future is going to hold today. So again, a lot of those parallels, but we figured things out. We slowed down, we adapted, we moved things to virtual. And I think a lot of our prevention efforts were so successful, and we figured out how to be sustainable in new ways. And so I think back about the strategic prevention framework, and that sustainability and cultural competency or cultural humility is right there in the center. And if that's driving some of these conversations, it's going to be a whole lot easier to pivot later on. And you do that by, again, looking at that North Star, looking at your mission, figuring out what is that direction that we are all going together. And it's taking that time to really strategize and focus so that when something comes up, we're not feeling like we can't sleep. There were nights that I couldn't sleep during the COVID pandemic, wondering how in the world am I going to make this all happen, and spinning my wheels. Instead, just slowing down, taking that deep breath. One deep breath. I was an athlete in high school and college. And I remember things shifted between my freshman year of high school and sophomore year of high school as a springboard diver. And the biggest change that I did was I took one deep breath before I went. And it was just and then I went. And that would reset me and calm me enough to be able to really focus on the next, that single dive that I had in front of me. And then, after I went, I could reset for that next one, but it was focusing on one single moment at a time. And I think that's a lot of the work that we're doing is how do we slow down and think about and focus on what do we need to do to get through the day? What do we need to do to get through the week? What do we need to do to get through the minute? And how can we take that deep breath and reset and slow down and figure things out so that we are moving strategically and thoughtfully rather than reactionary?
The power of breath brings me right back to when I, half serious, half joking, said, how dare we as prevention leaders pause to catch our breath? But it is so powerful. And as you build that pause and that breath into your daily practice, your norm, to where you don't have to think as hard about it, you just do it. I'm reminded of, I remember seeing it in Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits, but the matrix of important, urgent, not urgent. And when you pause, then you can start to think, is this actually urgent? Is it urgent and important, or is it urgent and not important? And figure out where that is to help you better prioritize and execute. But it all really starts with the pause and the breath. Yeah.
And I think understanding what's urgent and important shifts and changes throughout your leadership as well. As you learn to understand, what is, I think it's pausing to figure out what is the consequence or what is going to be the result of this, whatever is in front of you. That can help you determine the urgency. But I also feel like when you are a brand new leader, you don't know, everything feels so critically urgent. And so I remember even in my task management, I would categorize things as high priority, like urgent, on fire. I think it was labeled red. In fact, I know it was labeled red or colored red. And then I had medium and low. And I had those different, and it was, again, that stoplight between red, yellow, and green. And everything was red. And my mentor slowed me down and said, Louise, not everything is red and on fire. How do we slow things down and figure out? And I think it goes back to, as you were saying, that deep breath and slowing down and thinking through not just that moment or that urgent need, but it's thinking about how that's going to then ripple into other things.
Yes. And I got to give a nod. Sometimes things they feel very urgent, very important. The world's going to end if I don't respond to this email in 5 minutes. Oh my gosh. What I tell my team for DJC Solutions, we don't have those kind of emergencies at all. Never. All of our client work, all of our email work, even emails from me, the quote boss, they can wait until the next business day. But I felt like it's important for me as the business owner to both communicate that and model that to my team too, to help set that cultural norm. But things do feel like it is urgent. Yeah, it does.
And I think by figuring out and determining what those priorities are beforehand, it'll help make it a whole lot easier. So if your priorities are the people and the culture, we are going to prioritize those things, and other things can wait. Or if we have a guide that, we will respond to emails in 48 hours or within 48 hours or 2 business days. We don't have to be responding at 10 o'clock at night to a funder that emails us just because they email us at 7:30 at night. We can wait until the next day or 2 days later. It's also okay to respond by saying, hey, I hear you. I see this. I'm working on it. I don't have a response yet, but I will get you a response by this date. And slowing things down. There is very little that actually is an emergency. That's within our control, at least.
Yep. I may have actually just yesterday said, hey, I got to snooze this email until I forget, like May 8th, when I'll have the brain power to actually give it a legit response.
And,
But yeah, it's okay
and
to.
it's so funny because I have to remind myself and give myself permission to do that. But if you were to send me that email or somebody else were to send me that email, I would have so much respect for that. You've heard me. You're willing to respond. I have a good timeline. I get it. Life gets busy and there's a lot that we're all juggling. We're wearing so many hats. We're juggling multiple different priorities and figuring out how to navigate all of this work. And so I think it's just giving ourselves that grace that we would give to others too.
I've heard Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week, he has an autoresponder on his email that says, due to high workload, I'll only be responding to emails on Mondays at noon and Fridays, or like 2 days a week, specific time. And it's an auto reply always on. And I haven't been brave enough to do that yet. I'm trying to envision what a different version would be, a Dave version of that would.
I've seen that with others as well. And again, this isn't me because it's not the way I haven't been able to adjust to it. But somebody else found a lot of success with just that auto reply saying they check email between like noon and 1 every day, or 1 and 3 every day. And so they'll try to respond to your email within that time, or within, like, don't expect it outside of those hours.
Yeah. And what I have done is I just don't have my email open on my desk. When I'm in my deep work, my focus work time, is I have it completely closed out, because it'll suck you in.
Well, it will. And that's where when you have those blocked focus times, making sure that you truly block that time. And I've found kind of eliminate all other outside distractions. Decide beforehand, what are you going to focus on? What are those priorities? What are you going to accomplish? And say, I did this by the end of this time block. And then I think you need to set yourself at least 3 hours. I found I cannot accomplish enough in less than at least 3-hour time block, because it takes a while to get into that thought process and get going. And then once you get going, it's you're going to lose that momentum if you cut it off early. And so really giving yourself that true amount of time to work on, kind of dig through and noodle through some of those things.
Yeah. I do a similar 3-hour time blocking, and I'll wear over the ear earmuffs so then I can't hear, or headphones, not earmuffs, over the ear headphones. So I can't hear my wife and daughter, playing in the living room and giggling and have that FOMO, missing out on the fun. But yeah, I like 3 hours. But then I will just pick one thing, like just one. What is that one big like domino that I need to focus all my energy and effort on? And then I'm not going to look at anything else until that domino tips over.
I love that. Another thing that I know you also use, and I have found to be such a benefit, it kind of goes along with those boundaries that we set for ourselves, and that emailing is scheduling emails. That was like the greatest invention, when you could schedule an email out for the next day or later on. And so even because there are days, I'm going to be honest, there are days where I will step away at the middle of the day, and then I come back later at night and I need to get some stuff done. Or all of a sudden I had that spark of energy at a wild hour in the evening, and I start to get to work. Especially when I was working with other staff, I never wanted to set that precedent that it was okay to email outside of work hours, and that it was okay to work outside of work hours. And staff understood we all had very flexible schedules, and schedule out that email for the next day. Because if I get an email from my boss at 8:00 at night, just like if I get an email from my funder at 9:00 at night, I feel the need to respond as soon as possible. And one, it's okay not to, but if your supervisor doesn't even send it, you don't have that opportunity or that feeling like, I know she said it was okay, but Louise is emailing me at this time of night. Like I feel like I should respond. And so that's off the table.
Yep, absolutely. And I've even started sometimes in the subject line, starting with not urgent, or in the email body saying, no urgent response, no response needed, putting this on your radar, whatever it is, just setting, like letting them know that I have no expectations for a quick response. And one of the fun ways I've used scheduling emails too is if I know, say like you and I are communicating because we're going to be doing a training together, and I know you're going on a weekend trip, and I'll schedule an email for that next Monday because I don't even want to tempt you.
Yes.
Like not even going to tempt you, like, and I'll put in the email like, so it is Saturday morning at 6 a.m. I woke up, I had this great idea. So here I am writing you this email, but I'm scheduling it for because I don't want to interrupt your family time.
Yes.
And just calling it what it is, putting it out there because it's funny.
Absolutely. I think that's, well, and now I can do it with texting too, which is fantastic.
Yes.
So like last night when I found out I was going to be presenting at NPN, and I have a friend who lives in the DC area, and it's 11 o'clock at night, I scheduled out that text for 6 a.m. so that when she wakes up with her kiddo, she can know that I'm on my way out to DC and the dates. So without waking her up. So it's, as I have that thought, I can send that message, and I can also determine when that will be received.
I were to sum up this just portion of our conversation, one, for yourself, like as an individual, it's good to have those healthy boundaries, but then also as a prevention leader, it's important to respect those boundaries of your team, and that it communicates that you respect, you honor, and you value them and who they are as a person in their lives outside of their job title as well. So it just helps shape the culture.
I think it's modeling, and it is communicating, stating, and respecting, carrying out those values that you have. I think they're part of our value system, and that's what builds the culture. Absolutely.
And fun fact, did you know that I created a Working with Dave user manual?
No. Now I have to check this out. Is that on the website with?
It's not. It's something I just share with like my team, my subcontractors. And then if I have a big project with a client, but I'll send you the link. Just a fun little, hey, if you're going to work with Dave, here's the user manual.
I love that. Well, and this is also unrelated. I feel like we've gone on a few tangents, so have fun editing.
Oh yeah, that's all good.
But the other fun thing, and this recently came up again, but somebody put together a manual for like what communications go through email versus Slack versus other avenues like an immediate text message or phone call. And I was like, this is so brilliant, because while we think it might be intuitive, we might have similar but not identical ideas. And if I assume that you are thinking one thing, that email is for X, Y, and Z, and I think it is for A, X, Y, we're going to think that we're on the same page, and then we're not.
Okay, so what if we built an AI agent that had that decision matrix in it and could carry it out on our behalf? So it's just a matter of Slack, for example, jumping into Slack saying, hey, I want to send this message to these people. And then they decide, and they go out and send it.
There you go. Connect it with Zapier.
Yeah, there's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down, but it is lunchtime in Davis. What have we not talked about, though, that you would like to share with our listeners? Wide open.
Yeah, I think we've talked about a lot, and we've gone a few different directions. We've had fun sharing stories and situations that kind of bring some of these ideas to light when life feels chaotic, when the world feels like it's burning, when we are playing whack-a-mole and thinking through all those things, we can slow down and figure out what is that intentional next step, and it can help guide us for those future directions. I think that during disruption, purpose is that stabilizing force. And so it can help kind of ground and center us in order to not feel so spread thin and prevent burnout. So yeah.
And to like you said, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the name of your business again?
Montag Forward Solutions. Isn't that smart?
Yeah. Makes sense.
So how do we,
I'm connecting dots.
So how do we continue moving forward, and how can I support you in some of that work? How can we kind of slow down and think through that strategy piece? And I find many times it's just helpful to have a third party or an external party come in just to brainstorm ideas and come up with new, different solutions or aspects that you might not already be thinking about.
Absolutely. And so, folks, check out the show notes. A link is there. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom that you've gained over the last, I don't do math in my head, several years. And I'm pumped. I'll see you at NPN. We'll both be speaking there. And yes, this has been awesome. Keep on doing the amazing work that you're doing, helping individuals and organizations keep moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you for listening to the Prevention Leaders Podcast with Dave Clausen. Since prevention is better together, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this and other episodes with a friend. If you have a topic idea or guest suggestion, follow us on social media or email us at info@preventionleaders.com.